Mo, are you done with the commissioner over there? Okay, thank you. I was just making sure. I want to check with you. Are you shutting the door for us back there, Mo? Thank you. Good deal. Well, welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here bright and early this morning. This is the Appropriations Subcommittee of General Government, and excited to be here. And first up, we've got Commissioner Mark Williams, the Department of Natural Resources. So we'll go ahead and get started. And I'll turn the floor over to you real quick. Before I do, I know online we have Representative Barr, Representative Prince, Representative Evans, and Representative Hill. So thank y'all for joining us online. And Commissioner, I'll turn it over to you.
Inviting me back to present DNR's FY23 budget and our Georgia Outdoor Stewardship Act project slate. I'm Mark Williams, Commissioner of the Department of Natural Resources. Department of Natural Resources FY 2023 budget can be found on pages 15 to 17 of the tracking sheet. And of course, the department is grateful for the governor's recommendation of a $5,000 cost of living adjustment for full-time benefits of eligible employees, 401k match adjustments, and other statewide adjustments. And these changes will have a substantial impact on the lives of our employees, so we certainly appreciate that. Under line 34-2.6, you'll see $10,550,000 for capital maintenance and repairs. In state parks and historic sites divisions, line 34.7.5, you'll eliminate one-time funds of $2,800,000 for state parks and outdoor recreational areas. Under line 34.9.5, $871,210 for the Wildlife Endowment Trust Fund, and this is based on actual lifetime sportsman's license revenue. This trust fund is funded by a tax on hunting and fishing license designed to support wildlife programs. The Georgia Outdoor Stewardship Act, lines 34.4.1, has $8,598,032, and that's added to the base budget to make the trust fund whole. Mr. Chairman, that's short and sweet, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have, and then we'll move on to the GOSA slate.
All right. Well, thank you, Commissioner. Why don't you maybe touch on the capital maintenance and repairs? I know that we neglected a lot of our parks many years ago, and then they were used a tremendous amount during COVID, and maybe just touch on some of the repairs and maintenance that you'll be doing to kind of update our parks going forward.
Yes, sir. And we're very appreciative of this because, and also in the amended budget, we had a lot of money put in there for that as well to catch up on some deferred maintenance. We put a lot in our deferred maintenance category, and that can reach sometimes over 100 million. But we've been appreciative of chipping away at this every year, and this will certainly go towards that. As you know, we were the only state to stay open in of all our neighbors. We kept our parks open full time, and for the last 2 years, we've had about a 25% increase in visitation, and they're just getting a lot of wear and tear. And we certainly want to shore up a lot of our parks that do real well, adding additional cabins. Some of our cabins are getting tired, adding yurts, and just adding a lot of amenities to our parks and updating. In the past few years, we've built a new visitor center at Skidaway, which I think is in our top 5 visitation. Wormslow and down in Savannah is also our #1 historic park, and we have under construction right now a brand new welcome center. We're looking at doing a new welcome center at Amicalola State Park as well. So these monies go a long ways towards keeping it. Excuse me. Another chairman beeping in on me. It's funny, my series says Jesse Petria, so instead of Jesse Petrie. But we just appreciate these monies so we can keep our parks up to date and for the great citizens of this state and our visitors.
Good deal. You got a question here, Chair Lady Smith.
Thank you. And as Chair of Natural Resources Committee, I want to take this moment just to publicly thank you and your department, your rangers, all the work that you do for our state. A lot of times it goes unappreciated until you are a visitor to one of our areas. And so I really want to thank you for that. And if you will take just 1 second to explain again, who can apply to the Georgia Outdoor Stewardship Program? There's a lot of confusion about that.
Yeah.
And you can do that to our committee as well if I didn't give you enough time to
Of course,
prepare.
the state entity can, and we do. Any certified local government can, and then NGOs as well. And so did I miss one? I'm looking at Walter. Those are the 3 big categories. So we certainly encourage them. Taylor Brown does a great job with that program. During COVID, she usually goes around and does 3 or 4 town hall meetings during the application period. And of all the things we do in DNR that we have public comment around the state, those things are the well attended. Sometimes we have 250 attendees, city councilmen, county commissioners that come to those. During COVID, of course, you had to pivot to online, but we still had great attendance of those. So she does a real good job getting the word out.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mhm.
May I say something? And so this goes to, I think, a direct purpose of the citizens of Georgia. We pay for this through taxes we pay.
That's right.
And it's helping to make us the best state in the United States. So thank you for that.
Well, I appreciate it. And the Board of Trustees does a great job, as well as Taylor and her staff. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner, we heard a small request for the Council on American Indian Concerns. Do you have any information on that?
That is administratively attached to us. My new public relations and legislative affairs person, Donald Kirkland, serves on that council. Donald, do you want to?
Mr. Chairman, thank you for considering that request. So currently, as stands, our current funding doesn't fully allow us to reimburse members to simply travel to meetings. Many of these members are coming from places like Savannah to Atlanta, and some even a little bit further. It doesn't allow for hotel rooms, for any kind of meeting expenses. So this would just shore up and make sure our members are be able to reimburse for those meetings, and also allow us to leverage some of the partnerships that we've had and fully take advantage of those.
How often are y'all meeting?
We have 10 meetings a year.
Okay. And they're in different parts of the state, or?
They're generally here.
Okay.
They can move around some. There's usually 1 or 2 offsite. But our membership, because of where our state recognized tribes are, is spread literally in the corners of the states.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. Thank you, Don. Appreciate
Thank you.
that. Oh, hold on, Madam Chair.
Just another comment to Donald Kirkland and to DNR. The work that they do is to be available and a resource to the state of Georgia. And there are several lands where Native tribes feel like they have a ownership or an investment in, and they work together with the state to make sure that it's a resource available to everybody. So I support this effort.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner, I don't see
Okay.
any further questions on budget. I know you're prepared to present the 2021-2022 projects of the Georgia Outdoor Stewardship Program. So I'll turn the floor over to you for that, and I
Okay.
look forward to hearing about it.
Okay, you should each have a copy of the approved slate of projects. To remind everybody, they've already been approved by our GOSA Board of Trustees, our DNR Board, and your Senate counterparts took it up the other day in the Appropriations Committee we were at. This approval is for the slate of projects as a whole and not for individual projects. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it over to the committee, back over to the committee for any questions.
All right, does everybody have one of the? Okay. Whip Hatchett, question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Morning, Mr. Commissioner.
Morning.
Just curious as to how many applications you received total?
We had 87.
87. Okay.
What was the total request, Commissioner? Do you have that of those 87?
I
You have it?
don't have that total figure, but I can get it for you.
All right. Well, it looks like these are a lot of great things and across the state. Chair Lady Smith.
I promise you, I'm not normally this wide awake early in the morning, but if you applied for, if you're one of the 87 that applied for and did not receive this year, are you still in the, what do they do if they want to apply again? Are they still in the running?
They have to reapply. They don't just roll over to the next year. And then staff gets with them, Taylor and her staff will get them to help them improve their projects. Some of the projects I think have been on the list for at least 2 years and finally rose up and made it to that level. So we certainly encourage them to keep trying.
Thank you.
Whip Patchett.
I just have a follow-up. Could we get a copy of the scoring, not the actual scoring sheets, but how y'all score it? Just
Sure.
Is that, okay.
The criteria?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Representative Whithour.
Morning, Commissioner.
Morning.
Out of curiosity, this is a detailed question here. In the Vogel project, do you know if you retain the putt-putt course? Because my son is going to be very disappointed.
Yes, sir.
All right.
And Vogel is one of our top producing state parks as
It's a
well.
great park. I appreciate you.
Priorities, they're representative priorities, yeah. Any further questions on the GOSA program or any of the projects? All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any more discussion? See none. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Everybody online is good? You there? Okay. Commissioner, you're approved.
Thank you,
So,
Mr. Chairman,
look
members of the
forward-
committee.
Look forward to seeing all this happen, and thank you for what you do for our natural resources.
Thank you, sir.
All right. All right. Next up, we've got Department of Audits and Accounts. Greg, if you and your team want to come on down. You just talking this morning, no PowerPoint or anything? You had a really good presentation on the amended, so.
Well, thank you. I'll be brief today. All right. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's good to see you again, and I will be much more brief today than I was in the amended. So first of all, I want to start off by thanking the committee and the House for your considerations and support of our amended 22 requests. The funds there are very much appreciated and will have a significant and very positive impact on our recruitment and our retention efforts. And we are hopeful that the Senate will support them as well. For our 23 budget request, we have 3 requests for you, 4 if we consider the statewide changes that we'll talk about at the end. The first request you'll see in lines, there's 3 lines, 4.1.1, 4.2.1, and 4.4.1. Those are all the same requests. It's a request for the continuation funds related to the salary adjustments that we discussed in the amended 22 budget. So the total of those 3 line items should total about $2.8 million. And the 2023 budget reflects the annualized cost for the adjustments that were approved in the amended budget. Second item we want to talk about is in line 4.1.3. That is a request for $2 million. That is the estimated cost to outsource the requirements of SB 6. That's legislation that came out of last year's session, which is officially titled the Tax Credit Return on Investment Act of 2021. In the final version of that legislation, it required that the Department of Audits outsource or contract the work with third parties, which to get that work done. The work being a number of economic analyses for up to 10 different tax credits. So that is our estimate of the cost of that work to outsource that. We're in the process of going through an RFP process now to develop a pool of contractors to do that work. We expect the RFP process to be completed towards the end of April, early part of May. So this is our best guess of the cost at this point in the process. I'll say it's conservative and it's at the high end. So I don't think we'll incur costs. It'll go over the $2 million. So, and we would hope to come in less than that. The third item we want to bring to your attention, please look to lines 4.1.2 and 4.2.2. This is a request totaling $1.6 million to restore funding for personal services that was removed out of our FY21 budget as part of the required budget reductions for that year. Those were dollars for positions that we froze and kept vacant for the entire year in order to avoid furlough days for our existing staff. So with this particular request, we're asking to return to our pre-pandemic staffing levels around FY 2020 levels. So a portion of those funds we would add a team of performance auditors that would allow us to increase and accept at least one more special examination from the legislature, from the Senate and the House appropriation chairs, allow us to conduct probably one more performance audit during the year. And the remaining funds would be allocated to our financial audit staff that would allow us to improve our overall audit coverage of the auditees in our total audit universe, including state agencies, colleges and universities, and school boards, and will help to reduce the cycle time or the gap between audits that occur at specific agencies. And we think it's critical that we continue to have a regular presence at all entities to review financial practices, internal controls, and the fiscal health. And it also allows to provide greater assurance to you, the General Assembly, and the public that federal and state funds are being spent for their intended purposes. And then again, lastly, in addition to those three budget requests, there would be statewide changes that the House will need to add to our budget if you all approve. Since we are, again, a legislative agency, you would need to add those to our budget. That would include the annualized costs related to the $5,000 COLA to all state employees, and then the relative costs for the various retirement plans that are making their way through the legislative process. We've estimated what those impacts are. We've provided that information to both the House and the Senate budget offices. The estimated cost is around $3.5 million for those two items. And with that, Mr. Chairman, we'll stop there and ask for your favorable consideration and support of our 2023 requests, and be glad to take any questions y'all may have.
All right, thank you, Director. Whip Patchett.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Greg, excuse me. 4.1.3 on the Tax Credit Return on Investment Act of 2021 independent audit. Is there a time frame that states certain of when that will be completed, or do you not know that until have you already bid it out? Or
no, the requirement is that we complete have those analyses completed before the next session. So the
sometime
clock
this year?
It'll be coming up for the next session. The clock starts. We get a list of the specific tax credits to look at by May, and then we will bid those out, and we expect to have the work completed before you come back.
And then that will
next session.
be administered, I guess, by DOAS, or is that something y'all can do yourself?
We are working with the OAS to work through the RFP, but the contracting will be with us and whomever.
And I know we get bids on things a lot. I don't know that I remember, of course, I hadn't been here that long, but I don't know that I remember y'all having to send out audits. Is that something that y'all could do in-house, or is it just instructions? you've
This
been
is
given?
unusual. A couple of years ago, in some legislation, it was planned that we would conduct these audits internally. We do have the capability to do that. Last year, again, the language changed towards the end of the process, and it was the language it actually prevented us from doing the work and required us to contract out.
So the
with-
language prevents you from doing
Yes.
it? Okay, thank you.
What were the 10? You mentioned there was
Oh,
10. I know
we-
we have
we-
more than 10. I'm just wondering what.
We will get the law, as I remember it, we should get up to 5 requests, 5 from the House, 5 from the Senate. I think it comes from the Ways and Means and the Senate Finance Committees. So those requests are due to us in around May of each year. We've got some preliminary lists from both the House and the Senate. I honestly can't remember what's on the list. I know the low income tax credit, but we have 10 that have been provided to us last spring, but we weren't really able to start until this spring. I can
So-
provide that list to you if you like this to
So
see.
it will change each year.
It
may
will
be a
change
different
each year.
10 this
Yeah,
year. Okay. so-
Absolutely. This will be.
Continual, yeah.
I don't know if is there a sunset on that bill, Carol? Okay,
No
so
sunset.
each year we'll get up to 10 tax credits that will need to be analyzed and provided back to the legislature before the beginning of the next session.
Okay. I don't see any other I just wanted to follow up, I guess. You went into length in the amended about your staffing and shortages there, and just wanted you to maybe refresh everybody's memory on some of the struggles you're having and turnover and things better, or how's that going for you? And just update us maybe.
Turnover continues to occur. We continue to lose staff. We are again hoping with the budget request to get some funds to again bring our salary scales closer to market. As we move closer to market, we are hoping to again get folks in the door and fill vacancies. So we have a number of vacancies. Again, our turnover, as I mentioned, I think last time, our turnover rate's about the same as it has been for several years. The difference is we're not able to recruit folks into the door. So the gap between folks leaving and us rehiring is growing exponentially.
Yeah.
So we're very hopeful again with if the amended is approved and the big budget that we'll be able to compete and get folks in the door, and we expect to make up that gap.
Are you losing those to private sector or other state agencies?
We're losing them to all clients. So we're losing them to the Board of Regents. We're losing them to school boards. We're losing them to state agencies. I think if you look over at the Department of Treasury and the State Accounting Office, they've got at least 10 of our folks currently on staff. I think I mentioned the last time we talked, there was a specific, a local school board that hired away pretty much the entire audit team that was on site. And each individual that left went for about $30,000 more than what they were currently making with the department. So it's everybody. Anytime a vacancy opens up in the state, our folks are concerned we're going to lose somebody. We are. I view ourselves as a pipeline for the talent in the state. I don't mind that, but we've got to be able to ensure that we retain a certain number of folks in order to keep the pipeline going. So.
Well, you know, I hear a lot of schools talk about pipeline funds. Maybe you need to be requesting some pipeline funds to get more people into your program. Madam Chair, do you have a question?
Mr. Chairman, my only observation to that is that we should charge at least a finder's fee to each agency that gets one of our employees.
I will take that under advisement. We've discussed that internally as well. Yes, ma'am.
Good deal. Any further questions from the committee? Anybody online? I know Chairman Parsons has joined us. Good to have you here. I don't see any questions online. We're good here. Greg, thank y'all for what you do. Thank you for being here, and
Thank you.
We'll keep working.
We appreciate your support.
Yes,
Thank you.
sir. Thank you. All right. Next up, we've got the Department of Labor. Commissioner Mark Butler, you with us?
I'm here. Well,
Committee members, he is on page 13, section 32, while he's getting connected and logged in.
okay, I think, can you hear me?
Commissioner, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Hello? Hello?
I can hear him
see
online. I
you,
guess
but-
y'all can't hear him there.
Can't hear you. Hold on.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I was making sure that I wasn't on mute and I was not. So thank you, Chairman. And also thank you for making an accommodation for Zoom, especially this week in my household. This is one of our treatment weeks for my wife. So I have to be extremely careful about exposure, not just to COVID, but to flu or common cold or anything else. But we'll try to make this brief and kind of get right into this right here. There's a lot of movement in this document, as you can see. A lot of this has to do with the realignment of a lot of funding that comes through WIOA through the workforce programs out of the federal grants. And also it deals with some of the raises that were proposed by the governor, which we do appreciate the thought of raises, especially because of what you've heard in other testimony with trying to keep up with the general market when it comes to labor. It's not just government agencies that we compete against for workers, but we also compete against the private sector. I think right now, we're assuming possibly an 18% turnover this year. I do know that we have about 20% of our workforce right now is eligible for retirement as of this month. And I'm kind of shocked that I haven't signed more retirement papers, so I'm not sure what they're holding on for, but I'm very grateful that they've decided to go past the 30-year mark. Because if we lost 20% of our workers right now, that would be fairly devastating. That would be approximately about 200 people. It'd be very hard to replace that in short order. We do have the same problem in this budget that we had in the amended. And it has to do with the fact, and I'm not exactly sure how they come up with the funding formulas. And I've had this conversation with OPB before, and we can't seem to quite come to a middle ground on it. But the amount of money that was put in the budget for raises throughout the different lines throughout, administration, and nothing was put in labor market or unemployment or workforce is only really a fraction of what would be needed to actually fund raises for the departments over 1,000 employees. I think the total amount that they put in there is somewhere around, $400,000. And truth of the matter is, if you're looking throughout the entire document, it would take about $8.4 million to fund the raises with all the extra things that go with it. like retirement and other, overhead that goes with those raises. And without that additional money, the basically $8 million, then the raise, if we were to institute it, which we need to in order to stay competitive, to keep employees and not lose employees, we would have to take existing federal funds that are being spent somewhere else on programs and try to divert those. Now, in some cases, that money is not going to be there. For example, in the labor market information section, we don't, seriously, that we'd be able to cobble up enough money to be able to cover that raise. But it would basically be in effect like an $8 million cut if we were to institute this $5,000 per employee raise, which is much needed, especially when you consider all the hard work and that was done by the Department of Labor during COVID, during the pandemic. We broke many records. You're talking over 5 million claims that were processed, $24 billion, which is more than the accumulated total of the entire existence of Department of Labor was paid out in basically a year and a half's time. A lot of overtime, and our employees were under a whole lot of stress. We had over 300 people actually contract COVID in the department during the pandemic, and we had 24 people become hospitalized through that, and we actually had 10 of our employees actually pass away. I don't think you're going to find any other department that was hit as hard as ours, mainly because we were still showing up to work. There were some that were working from home. It was a small amount. And so, and I would really like to be able to give these raises, not only to be able to attract and retain, which we need to do, but also, quite frankly, as a reward for the hard work that was done. It was a very difficult task, one that nobody could have been prepared for. And if you take a look at the actual metrics that USDOL uses to judge by, and you compare us to the top 10 states by population, we were in the top 3 on performance measures, and that's saying a lot. So if you take a look through other things outside of the raise, you'll see some transfers, some funds to the technical college system. That is part of the governor's realignment. It has to do with WIOA and the different funding that comes through. We're trying to realign these to better serve the public. It will not affect any current services. Any type of stuff that needs to be handled to pick up different things between the two agencies can be handled through an MOU. And so we don't see there being any type of issue with these transfers and the realignment. I think it's a good idea. I have advocated for having these funds better aligned for probably 8 to 9 years.
All righty. Questions from the committee? I've got a few here, Commissioner. I know your agency on the raises, you have federally funded employees, you have state funded. A lot of the raises were based off the state portion, and the 8.4 million, I think you mentioned or referenced. Is that just on the state portion, or how do y'all break that down, or is that broken down to just the state portion, or can you speak to that?
Well, basically, we're getting about $400,000 for the raises. That will not fund raises for the entire agency. We do not get matching funds, so you can't use state funds to get more federal funds. You only get federal funds based upon what Congress appropriates to the U.S. Department of Labor, and then what the U.S. Department of Labor decides to hand out to the states. So basically, it comes down to an effect that if the state doesn't fund the raises, then the employees don't get them. A lot of our employees have the way they get paid are mixed. Like, for example, it depends on what they're working on. How our employees get paid and how each individual position is funded is almost like, the best way I can describe it is almost like a law firm. You may have one employee that may be getting paid by 3 different grants, depending on what they're doing on that particular day. And they actually have to charge for that grant on an hourly basis. And so it gets, fairly complicated. But some of it is charged to the state monies. Now, remind the committee, and I know you guys are familiar with this because we've talked about this many times over the last 10 years, but our state funds come from an administrative assessment. Administrative assessment is funded through the tax bills that we send out on unemployment taxes. Right now, we're only getting roughly about half of the administrative assessment back to us. They've always said, well, then justify getting the other half. I think this is a pretty good justification for using that administrative assessment monies that we have that have been going to other places to actually fund the raises in the program, in which is actually producing those dollars. I mean, we're not asking to take money from somewhere else. The $8 million could easily be funded by the administrative assessment that's being collected right now from the employers around the state.
Gotcha. Okay.
And actually, Chairman, that was actually the purpose of the administrative assessment when it was first put in place decades ago, was to make up for shortfalls in federal dollars.
Okay. All right. I know, and we've I've had several conversations with your staff about a lot of your locations across the state, and I know some are open, some are half open. Maybe have people on staff have to make an appointment. Is that still ongoing, or are you trying to get them all back open fully, or what's? Could you speak to that?
Yeah, we've had our offices open to the public since last October. And in some cases, we do have some offices that have had to shutter to in person at different times, depending on, like, say, for example, if you've got an office of, depending on where it's at, you could have anywhere from, 8 people in a small office in rural Georgia to 30 people in metro area. And let's say, for example, if one of those offices, especially one of the smaller offices, has a COVID outbreak, we're still following CDC guidelines. And then those individuals would switch to virtual working, and then they would start basically handling any type of customer either through phone or email, and they're set up to do so. It's no different than what any other state agency has had to do during this time. I know a lot of the partners that we work with are doing the exact same thing. Matter of fact, we had one office that we could not get open because we were not the primary leaseholder. It took a while to get it open. We were actually partnering with another agency, and until they decided to open the doors, we had to keep that one virtual, but it has since opened also.
And is any of that affected, but part of your employees or staff are funded with federal funds? Does that make it more difficult for you, or doesn't matter?
No, that doesn't affect it, because everybody that works virtually, we can track the amount of work that they do. We know that they're not just, sitting on the couch. Matter of fact, if we ever have anybody that, tries to put time in, and do it in a false manner where they didn't actually do any work that's working virtually, we catch them, and we have caught some. Over the last year and a half, 2 years, we probably had a handful of people that have overstated hours, and we can easily audit their work. And those individuals that have done that have been terminated. And so we keep a very close eye on it. And it's very easy to track it because of what we deal with and the type of sensitive information. We know it's not a keystroke tracking, but it's pretty close. We know each individual case that somebody works on during the day. So if somebody is saying, they put in 14 hours and we can look in the system and they only worked on 3 people, we know they're not telling us the truth, and, we don't see that. Our folks have been working very hard. You don't do as much work as we've done without people putting in a lot of overtime over the last 2 years, which is true, not just for the Georgia Department of Labor, but I can say this from all my contacts with my counterparts throughout the nation. Every state has had to deal with this, and mainly due to the fact of, the massive workload and how much responsibility Congress through the CARES Act put on Department of Labor throughout the nation, especially with the additional types of unemployment that they invented in the CARES Act. I think a lot of people still don't understand that A lot of things that we dealt with, for example, the unemployment for self-employed is not a program that was in place in Georgia or any other state, and caused a heavy burden on all the states to have to basically come up with a way to administer a program that didn't even exist when they passed it in the CARES Act. And they gave the public an expectation that it would be there basically the Monday after the Friday that they passed it. It was very difficult. Hopefully we've learned some lessons from this pandemic, and I hope people are keeping notes of how things were done and how things can be done differently, and also better lines of communication between our federal partners and our states about what the capabilities are and what the capabilities are not. As we're still seeing a lot of issues, not necessarily as much with Department of Labor's, but I just read an article this morning about the rent programs are still struggling. Here we are 2 years later to get money out, mainly because a lot of the different areas did not have a system or a way to administer those types of benefits, just like the banks struggle with a lot of these payroll protection programs. They were good ideas, but the problem was there wasn't really a functional way to administer a lot of these new programs that the CARES Act came up with, and became a tremendous challenge.
Right, gotcha. Commissioner, I think we got a question here. Chair Lady Smith.
Thank you. And Commissioner, I'm so sorry to hear about your wife, all of us here, keeping you in our prayers. And I know
Thank you.
these past few years have been overwhelming for your department and for us as trying to be the voice for the people who live in our areas facing the unemployment problems. I know at one point you had to close the location in Coweta County, and I'm just offering to you that there's several different areas that would provide some space for the Department of Labor. We're over 150,000 people now in Coweta County. So at times these situations are overwhelming, but we want to do our part to help bring you back to our county. Thank you.
Chairman, to speak to that point specifically, I think this realignment could probably help with what you're talking to. You're going to see, just like we've had to do during the pandemic, unemployment is going to be, in the future, not just in Georgia, but all the other states, is going to be handled more and more virtually than it is going to be in person. Basically, by the nature of a lot of the changes that have been happening on the federal level with new laws and new requirements of how we have to handle things. What we really have to concentrate on is the reemployment side. And that's one of the reasons why, I think the governor has a plan that he's working on with this realignment, and we're helping him with that. I think that actually can help you in your area, maybe provide some of those in-person type with this realignment going forward, because it will cause a lot of efficiencies that we currently do not have that'll be money savers. And that money could probably go toward, establishing, even more offices for those types of help, or providing those in a different type manner than what we're doing right now. Maybe having more of those types of services, maybe even located or co-located, say, for example, in a technical college or a technical college location or satellite location. I think it's a really good plan that they're working on, and I hope you guys will support it.
So thank you for that. I just want to again put out there that our local governments would be glad to assist you in bringing your presence back to our county. Thank you.
All right, Commissioner. I don't see any further questions at this time. Thank you for being here this morning, and we'll continue to work on all this. And again, I hope things get better at home, and we'll continue to keep you and your family in our thoughts and prayers. And we'll keep working on this, and look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Committee members, that is it for this morning. We will be meeting again in the morning at 9. 4:15 CLOB in the morning at 9. So hope to see everybody there. We're adjourned.